If you were talking to a group of young student journalists, which of course you do in Arizona, would you encourage them to get into the field of business and finance reporting today? And if so, why?
Always is the short answer. Business journalism is something that is a niche. It's something that's vital to our existence. It's vital to the economy. It's vital to the global economy. And a lot of people are intimidated by it. So, if anything, I'd say not only get into business journalism, but also brush up, take courses. Sure, get your MBA. That would be fantastic. But really learn as much as you can, because when a crisis hits, and not only do crises hit, they're like waves sometimes right after each other, and they're very complex, complicated, little understood things to know. And you may be the voice. You want to be correct. You want to provide context. You want to make it understandable. So I say yes. It's something that's absolutely important, and maybe more important as the world has become so interconnected that we don't always understand what's happening in the US, never mind what's happening, say, in the second biggest economy, China.
So the media has, from time to time come under fire, um, especially with these accusations of fake news. Why do you think an organization like the New York Financial Writers Association is of increasing importance in a world where the media climate is quite hostile?
Well, this is not the only time in history that people, society has, been mad at the media. There are reasons for people to be upset with things going on in our broader industry, and disinformation and misinformation are two primary causes. One, it might be accidental. The other one is deliberate. They're both scary, especially when repeated often and quickly, as it happens in the digital age. So something like the New York Financial Writers Association, the whole point of this organization is to help elevate us, do our jobs better. We have seminars, we have people who can network with you to help you find the source that you need. And certainly fake news, I hate that expression, but fake news is one of them. It's an extremely serious issue. And with artificial intelligence becoming more sophisticated by the day, it is a real enemy to the truth. And so we have to combat it. And so some of the things that we talk about, of course, are how to make sure that what we're putting out is accurate as well as quick, but accurate, and how to pinpoint ways that would say this is not a credible source, and go to stay on the path to reporting less if that's what it means, but to have the absolute truth, have everything correct.
You've been part of the New York Financial Writers Association for quite some time. Tell me, what has being part of this organization given you over the years?
Well, first of all, when I started doing business news on a daily basis in the 1990s, yes, there were women in finance. There are a lot more of them now. There were women who were reporting business news. There's a lot more of them now. And so it was like any place where you can find comfort and like a home, a professional home, and learn and to learn from people who had been there, been in the industry for many years, decades before. I mean, Myron Kandel, you know, everybody has benefited from his knowledge and his accessibility. And of course, he is just one of the many greats at the New York Financial Writers Association. But I think it sort of, I felt when I joined it and then became more active in it, that I was more credible too. You know, it did, I mean, I was reporting daily, and it was quite visible, you know, on CNBC and on CNN. But this was just another way that I could even just after hours to talk about stories, you know, and say, wow, you know, did you understand what the Fed chairman was saying, you know, today? Or I didn't realize that that company was so laden with debt, you know, until we saw the quarterly earnings. It's just things you talk about. I suppose if you're a car mechanic, you know, you talk about the latest Ford F1, you know, truck that came out, you know, or EVs. But in this case, you know, you had a place where you could really talk about that. You couldn't talk about at ease with many other people, just in general. A lot of my friends, a lot of great sources on Wall Street, no question about it. But this was, you know, my peers who were reporters.
And so how has your association with the organization changed over the years of your career?
Well, the New York Financial Writers Association is always there. I think that is one of the privileges of membership. It's always there. It's like your alma mater, except I, you know, haven't graduated, still a member, you know, but a great alma mater will always welcome you back and will always try to help you. You know, it's like kind of like your family forever. And I feel that way with the New York Financial Writers Association. A lot of things have changed. So many things have changed in the financial industry. So many things have changed in media. And then we had COVID, things like that. So, you know, the New York Financial Writers Association is still reaching out to people, to members. Hey, we're doing this by Zoom. We're gonna do this, but it's going to be on a more limited basis. It's, you know, it's still there, and I feel very good about it. And of course, I have friends in the you know, who are members. So it's a very welcoming place.
So part of your association, and of course, that's how I got to the Follies because of you, is the Financial Follies. So tell me, like, what does the Financial Folly, what has that meant for you?
Well, Conway, I got sucked into it just like you did. There was one of my peers at CNBC at the time saw me make a toast, and he said, "You'd be great for this show, this Financial Follies." And I didn't know what he was talking about. And, you know, like any project that you undertake, you know, you have to embrace it fully. You know, you just don't waltz in on stage and you know all the lyrics and you know all the steps. Even if it's an amateur production, that is, I am the amateur. There were professional musicians, of course, and it was on a very nice stage, as always, you know, one of the major New York City hotels. But, you know, honestly, it was a great outlet because it was so clever. The lyrics were always so clever because we have really smart, very talented people in the organization. And you had no shortage of outlandish business stories, you know, crazy inflated egos, spectacular bankruptcies, crimes, you know, so there was no shortage of material. And then, so they would, you know, put together this, you know, short program about an hour or less. It's been abbreviated in more recent years. And then you perform it. And the audience is notoriously bad. They are there to network, and I don't blame them. But, to be able to keep your cool, to keep, know your lines, to hit your notes, kind of reminds me of when I was reporting on, daily on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. You had to stay focused. And so what if somebody was, in your face nearby, just, you could not be distracted, you had to keep going. And I think that's the mantra of a professional performer. So it actually helped me, I think, in doing what I do. And that is not only, reporting for a network, but being in class, a large class of maybe unruly college students and gaining control, or speaking before a live audience where I'm interviewing someone. It's just really helped in a lot of ways. And it is fun. It is a time commitment, but, it's worth it.
So you've been in many skits, you've sang many songs. So what is your most memorable
Oh my,
follies?
I've had so many, career-ending songs, like, when, I remember one year I was perched on a piano as the curtains parted. I can't even remember what the song was, but I had to get off the piano without falling and then walk, upstage and keep going. And, to me, that was walking and talking. And that's sometimes reporting too, right? You're in a live shot and you want to point out things, right? I remember doing a Spice Girls number. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. There were 5 of us, and we were, it was hilarious. I don't know, it might have been something about the Euro. I remember, like, an ancient song I did was at the time she was a talk show hostess, Kathy Lee Kathy Lee.
The short redheaded one?
Kathy Lee, who was live with Regis, and she had a problem with some of her clothes were being made, I think, she was accused of sweatshop labor. And so I think that we did a song that went to the melody of "Don't Cry for Me, Don't Cry for Me," from Evita, Argentina. We did that song. There are too many to point out, but they're so good. I especially liked anything that had any Bob Fosse moves, Fosse hands, jazz hands. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Great. You always had a professional band. So, it was really a treat. Who needs karaoke? You were like in front of a live audience with musicians, and there's, no backing. It's you. So it's great.
So I want to follow up on something that you spoke about like 2 answers ago, and that was about how you're now teaching, right? And so there are a lot of people in our profession and members of the New York Financial Writers Association who feel like they're being pushed out, or they're having to transition out of financial journalism for whatever reason. Some are going into PR, some are teaching. Talk to us a little bit about that transition for you and how your life, we still consider you a journalist. You're still a journalist. How has that informed how you're teaching the next generation?
Well, I'd like to say that ageism, pushing people out, is just unique to the news industry. It's not. There's all sorts of dynamics at work, whether it's, a person is seen as making too much money, or they're not as eager, or they they have certain standards, and someone just coming in, it's like, yes, boss, I'll work 25 days straight, and then you can think about giving me a day off. There's definitely that. I've been both places. So it's not unique to the TV news industry, to journalism. But I think it has become accelerated because the business model has changed. And I don't want to get too wonky, even for the New York Financial Writers Association, but the business model has been turned on its head because of the ability to get information cheaply from a vast assortment of sources. And that has created real financial problems for legacy sources of information, like, say, the New York Times, which has successfully been able to turn it around, and Washington Post. But, I mean, there are countless small newspapers, weekly newspapers, mom and dads that have gone out of business, and there are news deserts all over the country. But to get back to your original question, so it's accelerated. I think pushing people out is accelerated because the financial pressure is so great. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I think you need youth and eagerness, and I think you need experience and context. I think you need both in a perfect newsroom. But regardless what era, the news industry is tough because oftentimes it's not 9 to 5, and it's not Monday through Friday. You got a big story. You may be working on it for days. I mean, when I was in general assignment, you got on a plane and you didn't know when you were coming back. And it's very tough on you physically, mentally, socially. So who wants to do that forever? It's, I mean, it's kind of like being like a professional athlete. The shelf life of a professional athlete is not always like Tom Brady, right? And he's retiring, I think. So, I always tell my students this, they're going to be naysayers. I say this, my students, they'll badmouth the industry, what it pays, what it's worth, and all this stuff. It's like the skills you learn in journalism are transferable to a vast assortment. It's almost like an infinite number of industries. You have to work collaboratively. You have to work on crushing deadlines. You have to distill complex information and make it understandable. You have to present calmly and make sure that you're telling people what you know and staying away from what you don't know. I mean, there's so many skills you learn so quickly because it's baptism by fire for most graduates when they get out of school. And so I am living by those words. When some changes came about for me, I took some time off. I had been working professionally since I was in college. I was on the air while I was in college at a commercial radio station. And the benefit of having some exposure in the industry and being more visible, was really great. I didn't even have an agent. And people came to me. They just came to me. They knew I'd left CNN on very amicable terms. And, they asked me to do things, consult, lead a discussion, traveled overseas to do things. But then, I got a call about teaching. And that is something that is, takes all the skills that you learn, plus some that you don't, because the students, they consume things differently than the way we do. I mean, they are different creatures. And so you have to be humble too. You have to really be humble. It has to be about them. So I would just say that, I mean, welcome to the world in the 21st century, is that you don't work one job, certainly, all your life. But the other thing is you may not work one type of profession all your life. It's not only one employer, it's like different kinds of professions. And journalism, I think, is an excellent, you have an excellent skill set that can work very well for many different types of occupations. And also, we're gutsy, right? We, like, in your face, we ask questions, right? So, we have the nerve to ask for a job.
Okay. I think I'm
That
good.
wasn't too long, Conway.
No. That's good. That's good.
Got it wherever you want.
Yes. No, we're good. We're good because one of the questions they had here, you answered in your profession about how it's changed and everything like that. I think we're good. This is good. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
I
Let me
mean,
hit stop record.
one of the questions about like how the industry has changed. I mean, if you want me to go into that, I'm happy to, but if you feel,
Sure. You want to do it? Go ahead. Let's talk. So how has the profession of financial journalism changed?
well, I think Conway that, reporting has changed dramatically in our lifetimes, for the good and for the not so good. So we have this immediacy with technology, with our phones. I actually reported a 3-minute story completely on my phone without a tripod, because I went down to the border in Arizona and I saw a wall being constructed through a federally protected park. And I just started rolling on my phone, natural sound, interviews, videos, wide shots, close-ups. And that turned out to be a 3-minute story on Arizona PBS. I didn't anticipate. That is the beauty of having this in your pocket. When I started out, I had a producer when I was in the field, a sound person, and a shooter. And now my students, they are a Swiss, Army knife. Essentially, they have to know all these things. The bad thing is that there's so much pressure. The deadlines haven't changed, but the workload has increased. And so it's always been a problem in our business, where you want to be first, you want to get it out, to people, this information, you want to get it right. Don't be first if it's not right. And I think that's increased with technology. There's a lot of garbage out there. You really have to be very well trained in terms of making sure, like having the blinders on as to what your, credible sources are. But the other thing is that there's tremendous pressure on news organizations of all sizes, because you and I could build a website today and say whatever we thought. The earth is flat. There's aliens that are, rowing across the Hudson River. We could say whatever we want. We can make it look really good, make up quotes, and somebody might believe it. And that's the danger. And it has created real financial pressure on news businesses that don't operate that way. They put a lot of effort into stories, make sure that, that their T's are crossed and their I's are dotted. And it's very difficult right now.
While we have you, and since you have a foot in both worlds, journalism and education, what are you saying to your students about Chat GPT and about these AI products and how that could possibly change the way we do things in our industry?
I think in the early stages of that, like where I have seen stories and I do share it in my business journalism class. One of the assignments I give my business journalism.
Hold on a minute. Let's do this again, because they're not going to hear my question.
Okay.
So they don't know I asked about Chat GPT. So if you could say Chat GPT in your answer.
I'm not even sure what is the GBT.
GPT, I don't know what it stands for, but it's an AI. It's an AI program.
Initials? G is in Gary.
PT.
Okay. GPT. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we have this new thing that the industry is starting to deal with now. AI technology, specifically Chat GPT. How are you talking about that with your students, and how this new technology could potentially change the way we do what we do?
Yeah, I think it's in its early stages, but clearly some organizations have, I've seen articles in the last couple of years that they're using AI, for instance, for some basic reporting, and things like Chat GPT are some of the tools that are being looked at as a way to enhance the reporting at a time when the bottom line is so pressured, right? There's a lot of money, a lot of foundational money, a lot of university support, a lot of entrepreneurs are looking into things about information, because it's just shocking about some of the things that are being said and the large numbers of people that believe them against all common sense, it would seem. So I think there's a lot of discussion about tools that are being used. What sticks? What's going to be a staple, a standard feature in 5 years? I can't answer that, but all I know is that when I left day-to-day reporting, I was not required to have a Facebook page. I didn't have an official Twitter account, because it wasn't. That's how technology can explode. Just a matter of years, it becomes like part of your life.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm glad I got to chat